This lesson will cover French irregular verb conjugations under the imperfect. With the exception of aître, all imperfect stems for regular and irregular verbs in French are formed by removing the on ending from their respective present tense nous forms. So as a result, the only irregular imperfect verbs in French are those that have irregular present tense nous forms. Now for aître, the imperfect stem is et, été, était, était, étions, étiez, été. J'ai verbs maintain their e in their present tense nous form, so that e is included in all imperfect forms with the exception of nous and vous. So for manger we have manger, 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 mangions, mangiez, manger. J'ai verbs under the imperfect remain regular in the nous and vous form, and their irregular stem applies to the other imperfect forms. Ces verbs have a cedilla in their present tense nous form, so this cedilla also applies to the imperfect forms, but again with the exception of nous and vous. So for commencer we have commencer, 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 commencions, commenciez, commencer. For ces verbs, their nous and vous forms remain regular under the imperfect, and their irregular stem for the imperfect applies to the other four forms. Uire verbs add an s at the end of their imperfect stem because this s is included in their nous present tense forms. So for traduire, we have traduisez, 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 traduisions, traduisiez, traduisez. For uire verbs, their irregular imperfect stem applies to all forms, including nous and vous. Aître verbs remove their t and add a double s at the end of their imperfect stem. So for connaître, we have connaissez, 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 connaissions, connaissiez, connaissez. For aître verbs, their imperfect irregular stem applies to all forms, including nous and vous. Indre verbs remove their d and add a g prior to the end of their imperfect stem. So for attendre, we have atteignez, 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 atteignons, atteignez, atteignez. The irregular imperfect stems for indre verbs apply to all forms, including nous and vous. A large number of irregular aître verbs end in on in the present tense nous form, and not the usual issons for aître verbs. So as a result for these verbs, you only need to replace their ir or oir ending with the usual imperfect endings for those verbs. So for ouvrir and dormir, we have ouvrez, 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 ouvrions, ouvriez, ouvrez. Dormez, 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 dormions, dormiez, dormez. Ir verbs that follow this imperfect pattern include ouvrir type verbs, dormir type verbs, certain ir verbs with two present tense stems, certain ir verbs with three present tense stems, querer verbs, and the verbs dormir, venir, and vêtir. And there are several other verbs with irregular imperfect stems based on their present tense nous forms. So using the irregular imperfect stems of dire and vanc, we have dissez, 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 dissions, dissiez, dissez. Vanquez, 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 vanquions, vanquiez, vanquez. Lastly, the verbs falloir and pleuvoir are irregular impersonal verbs and are only conjugated in the il form. Il fallait, il pleuvait. With that, we have covered irregular French verbs under the imperfect. I again apologize for any mispronunciations I may have, as I am not a French speaker. As I always say, if you could please do me a favor and share this video series with your friends and teachers, I would very much appreciate that. And that is all for now, so until next time.